Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I found out the hard way, nothing is what it seems.
And I'm Gary, and today we're going to review and discuss The Empty Man, which released in 2020 from writers David Pryor and Cullen Bunn and directed by David Pryor. Iain, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows James LeSombre, played by James Badge Dale. He's a man who's recently just suffered a tragedy in his life and has been asked by his neighbour to investigate her daughter's disappearance. He's an ex-detective, and using his skills, he starts to go around questioning her friends and starts to uncover the myth of the empty man. As James's investigation deepens, he realizes that not only is his connection to the disappearance more personal, but he may know more about the empty man than he realized.
Show yourself.
So this was filmed in 2016, 2017, so about 4 years before the film was actually released. And it was actually one of the last films to be released by 20th Century Fox before they were bought out by Disney. Although some early test screenings came back rather negative, 20th Century Fox didn't have much faith in the film. They released it to a few cinemas, and then when they saw how much nobody really appreciated it, they were like, you know what, it's not even worth putting this out on DVD. Oh, it's been sold to Disney now, big whoop, nobody cares, moving on. But over the years, that film has, The Empty Man has appeared on streaming sites, and a few horror aficionados have picked up on this, and the word has started to spread about this film. And I'll be honest to say, I was one of those. Right when this film released on streaming, I watched it. I have to say, I attempted to watch it. I thought this film was boring, slow, repetitive, and dull, and I fell asleep. And then I was requested to watch this film, and I tried a second time about a year ago.
Wow.
Same again. About an hour into the film, I fell asleep. So this was my third attempt at watching The Empty Man.
It's kind of like me with Romulus, you had to do it like 3 times before you got through it. Yeah. This was my first time, but I had listened to Gary for the last couple of weeks saying, yeah, we're not doing it. And I was just like, really? And then he'd retell the PTSD about how much he hated it and it was boring. And so I was like, well, okay, that's not good. And I was really good as well. I didn't wiki it.
Oh, really?
I did.
That's such a surprise, because the character in this film spends a bunch of time on Wikipedia.
I know. I've been doing very well this year. I was like, no, I'll be good.
Did you feel withdrawal when you watched the protagonist on Wikipedia? You were like, I should have been doing that.
No, because in fairness, I've seen enough horror movies in my time. This one was pretty obvious how it was going to play out. And like I said, I saw it was on Disney like months ago, and I thought, at first I was just like, okay, maybe I'll get around to watching it, but I don't usually do that with Disney movies. And then it came up for the review, so we were like, yep, let's go for it. And so I sat down and I was like, oh my God, 2 hours and 16 minutes. Interestingly, the Disney version is like 2 hours and 18 minutes. So I was like, oh, maybe it's just longer credits on there,
Well, yeah, maybe,
like
more opening credits, because I think it's 2 hours 17 is the...
Yeah. But I was just like, okay, this will be interesting. And I was kind of thrown right at the start, because we start in Ura Valley, Bhutan, 1995.
It's the Himalayan mountains here, and it's gorgeous backdrop.
Oh, is it? Because I couldn't tell if it was real or not.
Well, it's probably real, but I don't think they were there.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. It felt like these actors may have been on a set and it was a green screen background. But I could be wrong. It could have just been really, really good camera lighting.
Considering the budget, I think they did a very impressive job. And I liked some of the visuals, especially the opening shot. I was like, that's a nice opening.
Yeah, it was nice. And then you've got these 4 people walking up the mountains. And
typical cold opening of your horror movie. Should be over in about 2 minutes.
Yeah, like they're spinning those things as they're walking past. And I'm like, I'm not sure you're supposed to fucking touch that shit, And they come across that rickety ass bridge, and I'm like, oh yeah, this looks safe. I've got nothing against Tibetan engineering. I mean, it looked pretty sturdy. It's probably been there for thousands of years.
But they end up in the cabin in the middle of this snowstorm.
Well, no. If you remember, really, we get out there first, and we're not told who these people are. We're only told who Paul is, because everyone's like, Paul, what are you doing? And he's like, can you hear it? Can you hear it? And you keep hearing this whistling on the wind. Now, the sound effects for this movie were pretty good and pretty sketchy in some places, especially when you get to the weird nightly ASMR
I was
whispering
getting the
going.
Mountains of Madness vibes right away with like the mist on the mountains, the faint whispering of a voice in the air.
Yeah. The old something's calling Paul, and he's going to possibly... Oh, he's fallen down a massive hole. I was like, oh, is he dead? That'd be a really cool opening, is he? Oh, no. The other guy has decided that he's going to rappel down into the hole, look for his friend, who is sat cross-legged in front of what appears to be a giant skeleton.
Yeah. I was like, man, that is a real cool prop.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a giant skeleton. You can tell the proportions. It's definitely humanoid, but it's larger.
Yeah.
So you're like, is it a monster, an alien, an ancient humanoid skeleton?
Yeah.
But he finds like Paul's unresponsive. He's trying to get him away, and he's like, right, I'm just going to have to drag you out of here.
Well, it's the way that Paul also whispers, if you touch me, you will die. And I'm like, would you?
Well, I mean, he scares his friend enough to like be like, oh, I'm not sure now, but like...
Well, that's it. Wouldn't you also... I mean, it's like Evil Dead, isn't it? You would shout up to the other two girls, we may have a problem here, but we've already been told that there's a storm coming in. So, yeah, he grabs Paul, pulls him out the cave to the cabin, lays him down, and Paul's asleep.
Yeah.
Catatonic, And we then see these three other people for 3 days. Like one day, it says, what was it? 1 day, 2 days, 3 days. And each day you just see something change. Like Paul's like floating above his girlfriend at one point,
Whispering
and he's whispering in her ear.
I was like, that's really freaky.
So then she starts to so she starts to think some strange things are going on.
I think it's a pretty cool moment where the other two have left the cabin.
Yeah.
And she hears or sees something outside.
Yeah.
And we just see this caped shadow, this figure.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh, we need help. But then it runs at her.
Well, at first it kind of slides towards her, and you realise that it's not walking, and then it starts to scuttle. Then it chases after her, and it starts to attack the door. And she's armed herself with a knife.
But it's her friends on the other side now.
Yeah, and her friends realise that, something is really bad with Paul, and they're not going to be able to get out of this storm. And it's a really kind of nice opening, one of those horror movies that goes, right, there's something fucked up, and this is going to get out. And on the third day, Paul goes for a walk, and so they follow him, and he's sat on the other side of the bridge, and he's got this whistle that they found him holding in the cave, and he's blowing on it, and it's really kind of creepy, really nicely set up. And his girlfriend she just flips. She pulls out this knife. She stabs the medical guy in the back and pushes him off the cliff. And then she slices the throat of his girlfriend. And so she's dead. And then she just looks at Paul and walks backwards off the cliff.
Yeah. And Paul's just like, okay, I'm just going to 1,000-yard stare.
He's just going to... whatever he saw in that cave is now in him and is now going to obviously
infect or pass
issues.
On or whatever. Well, we don't know, because we know that this beginning was at 1995. And after the sequence, we have the title. 22 minutes in, I was like, man, that was a really long cold open.
That was a really long opening, yeah.
And now the film will actually begin, I guess, day one again.
Well, you think, but no, that won't come up again until maybe another halfway through the movie when, the character played by James Badge Dale decides to do something. But we'll get there.
Well, we get introduced to him now, and it's his birthday.
Is it? Well, I mean...
Technically, yes.
Technically, it is.
He's got a voucher, and he orders his meal, and...
Yeah. He has some food in a Mexican restaurant, and then because he pays with this voucher, they bring him out a cake, and they wish him happy birthday. And it's like, okay, cool. We're starting to slowly get some information that, because we're told by Amanda, when he gets home, he finds his neighbour sat in his back garden looking at this pool, and she's kind of dropping hints about how she's feeling since her father died and how he lost his wife and son kind of like around about the same time. And it kind of just sets up that something bad happened to them and he was supposed to be there. It's like, where were you? Where were you? And I've got to say now, that was really good. I think if they had just stuck with that idea instead of going for the twist that they go with, it kind of would have been a bit better. But we'll get to the twist.
I'll also, I think, like, first time watching the film here as well, like, after that really solid opening, and, like, everything felt like traditional horror movie. Coming to the diner, going into the back garden, sitting with this girl, like the pacing is already slowing down here. But the conversations that they have, or that she has as well, like you might just start zoning out from this moment because she starts talking about these like metaphysical ideas of imagination and thought manifesting into reality. It's like all your good thoughts, all your bad thoughts. Like it's what you think. Like it starts in here and it comes out here. And you're just like, what is she talking about? But then we cut to like the night before and we have a bunch of kids on a bridge. And I'm like, okay, now the film's like going straight into like normal American horror movie stuff.
Well, this flash, you're talking about the bridge flashback, right?
Yeah.
See, you got to remember, the bridge flashback isn't established until he goes to school and he talks to her friend. And that's not established until after Amanda has gone missing. So this girl Amanda, played by Sasha Frolova, she was kind of cool, kind of weird, you know, like immediately for me, she knows more than she's letting on, and James is our main guy, but pretty much knows nothing. But it's when she disappears, and James gets called over by her mum, Nora Quayle, and you know, at first you think maybe she's committed suicide, but she hasn't. She's literally just disappeared in the middle of the night. All of her friends have disappeared in the middle of the night, and they've all written "The empty man made me do it." Especially Amanda, who's written it on a mirror in what appears to be blood, and you start to think, okay, that might be. It doesn't look like human blood; it could be animal blood. And so James is tasked with the investigation now of finding out about Amanda, and so then he goes and finds out from her friend, who then tells him about the flashback.
Yeah. And it's kind of like, you know, the boogeyman, you know, Bloody Mary, Candyman, like say his name. But for this, it's like, be on a bridge, blow into a bottle. And then on the first day, you will hear him. On the second day, he'll see you. And then on the third day, he'll find you. Scary, isn't it? Yeah. And so all the kids are like, well, I double dare you, I triple dare you, kind of thing. And so, yeah, they all start passing the bottle around and blowing into it, except the one girl who's just like, this is bullshit, man, but I'll, anyway.
Yeah.
This is bullshit. If it's bullshit, why won't you do it? Fuck all you guys.
Yeah, so that whole idea, I'm like, right, so you've got these kids who have been told this kind of urban legend idea that this empty man is about. Now, going with the 3-day idea, right, while James is investigating these disappeared kids, he keeps seeing that they've got these black posters. And he keeps seeing leaflets to the Pontifex Institute. And the more you see this stuff, you're like, right, okay, so immediately the Pontifex Institute has to be the evil cult that's inside this movie.
Obviously.
And you've already had this ominous monster thing that's been set up at the beginning with the guy who's obviously got it inside his head. So, as an experienced horror watcher, I'm like, okay, James has to start investigating this institute. But he really doesn't do that very quickly. He's still kind of walking around, I don't know, weirdly kind of acting like everything is still okay. Even though, you know, like, oh, he finds himself on a bridge during the day. He finds a bottle. He thinks, you know, blowing in a bottle on an empty bridge. What's the worst that can happen?
Well, he's like, well, I'm doing this investigation. A bunch of other people have done it and disappeared, so I might as well. I'm going to find out what's going on.
Yeah, okay.
Just blow into some bottle.
I'll blow into this bottle.
But we also find out that he is an ex-detective. He was in the police force at one point because he goes to the police and starts getting, he's talking to his old partner, his old boss,
Yeah,
trying to get some information. And his boss is like, yeah, it's like, and he has one of my favorite scenes where he's explaining to him, and it's pretty horrific, but he explains how this woman like killed her child, and basically because the voices told her to.
Well, she fed her newborn baby to a pack of hungry dogs,
Yeah.
and she wrote "The Empty Man."
Yeah.
Made me do it. Now that actor, the detective he's been talking to, knowing the ending, when you look back on the movie, you go, ah, right, yeah, actually, because it's all really, I don't know, the dialogue is all kind of weird, but then weirdly constructed in a way that when you look back on it, you go, oh, yeah, like Fight Club, it was there in the movie the whole time.
Pretty much.
Yeah, like when James is at the house with Nora, the cops are like, oh, yeah, we're going to find your daughter, don't worry, we'll just investigate it. And then they call James out of the room because they're going to go talk to him. Why? He's a complete stranger. Oh, but he's an ex-detective. And then you don't even see what they say. He just goes out the room and comes back and says to Nora, yeah, they don't think that blood's real blood, human blood. They think it's animal blood. And then, like you said, when he goes back to the police station and he's talking, like he just walks in there like, oh, it's all cool. Here comes Jim, old Jim from the old detective. They literally tell you that they know he worked somewhere else. So then they don't actually have any connection to him.
But they have sympathy for him as well because of losing his wife and child and no longer being employed there. So
yeah, but
you understand why they give him some slack?
It was the line that the detective gives James when he starts talking about the empty man and he says, you can't arrest the cosmos.
Yeah, that was a great
line. And I was like, oh, fuck off, movie.
We can't indict the cosmos.
You can't indict the cosmos. It's brilliant.
You're basically
the cops
telling
have no
me,
answers.
Well, no. Well, they don't. Yeah, that's true. But you're also telling me as well that James's position in all this isn't real. James, the cosmos is in control of everything, Gary. It's been in control of everything since 1995 when he sat in a fucking cave in a skeleton's body.
I know, it's pretty horrifying, isn't it? When you realise you've got no input, no free will. There's an ancient one controlling everything.
Yeah, but it also, I don't know, it has to be structured quite well. Because, like I said, we're following James. He's investigating these disappearances. He finds the bodies underneath the bridge.
The empty man made me do it again.
Yeah. 5 of Amanda's friends have all hung themselves.
But Amanda's not there, which is the one he's looking for. But also the girl that he had sit in his car and shared a cigarette with is also not there.
Yeah.
But then we cut to her in a bathroom having a shower.
Yeah, what a bathroom. Fucking hell.
I'm guessing because it's all steamed, it looks much larger than it is. I don't know.
Well, I assume she must have been at the gym or
That's
something.
what I thought, because it was so big. But then I was like, no, American houses are much bigger than ours. So.
Yeah, and she thinks she sees something through the steam. Actually, it was really quite bad. Like trying to establish something coming through the steam. I'm like, I know it's there, but I can't see it. But what is it? And she'd been seeing
the shadow.
What we assume is the empty man, or
there was a cool shot where she was in the car and she looks over at her friends and the shadow pops up over them and she looks away again.
So it grabs her and stabs her in the face with some scissors. But there was a cool cut where it actually shows that she's grabbed herself and stabbed herself multiple times in the face. And I was like, okay, so the empty man's not real then, it's your imagination.
Well, it's not physical, and it is infected your mind. Yeah. And that's what happens over the course of the 3 days. Like, he sees you, you hear him, he gets in your head, makes you see things, makes you do things. And that's what happens to all the people at the very beginning of the film as well.
Yeah, but, like, he does different things to different people.
Maybe their strength of mind, or whether they have any purpose beyond what it needs or wants.
Well, that's the thing. It's the idea that he's not real unless he has a belief system behind it, but at the same time he wants people to kill themselves to believe in him, like Freddy Krueger. It's very confusing exactly what he wants these people to do, because James starts to investigate the Pontifex Institute.
I'm just going to a little bit of trivia for you.
Right, yeah.
Pontifex in Rome is a high order of priests.
Right.
And I believe certain members of the Pontifex would have a direct link with God. So it like a link, like a bridge.
Yeah. Right, okay.
So I was like, so there's some clues in the name. Yeah.
So they're either talking to God or talking to themselves.
Or the empty man.
Yeah. And obviously nobody ever expects the Spanish Inquisition or anything. So, but yeah, so he goes to this Pontifex Institute and he meets this girl at the reception who looks like she's been hollowed out by fucking something soul-sucking. Which, like I said, kind of confuses me, because everybody else who's blown on a bottle on a bridge somewhere,
they've not turned into cult zombie-like.
Yeah, no, they killed themselves or they killed other people.
But this is the higher order. This isn't a bunch of, delinquent kids.
Well, that's it. So, how do you go about filling your membership?
Well, I guess it's been happening since they found out about what happened in 95.
Yeah, because they give out these forms.
Because also when James is walking around the building, there's a photo of
the cabin. Yeah, you do see the cabin.
So they of course have a link to that. That's where they exist now.
And and he gets given this form, and the questions on the form are ridiculous, I suppose. The script in some ways worked really well. I love a good deep discussion about existence and consciousness and time and how these all things work together. Look at a ghost story, like the guy at the party. Fucking love that sequence of that guy just talking about reality and how
philosophizing about it all.
Yeah, because it's real, it's tangible, it's what we can actually say is actually going to happen and or
there's
happen.
Safety in that.
Because but I'm not talking about safety. What I'm talking about is
the unknown, which is much scarier.
Evidence. There's evidence in the unknown. There's evidence in knowing how you will die and how time will pass and things like that. In this movie, they're taking this idea of this concept of this thing and trying to explain it to you, but also try to explain it to you in a way that it cannot be explained. That's like trying to make a cake without ingredients, people. That's like trying to keep a normal person. You can kind of see now why the normal cinema goers, when they went there, they went, I don't like it.
Right.
Because it takes 2 or 3 times to actually listen to the script and go, oh, yeah, right, nothingness is something, and something is nothing, and we should give up all of our things, but we should also have things, because that's what makes us energy for the empty man to feed on us, because if we're nothing, we're hollowed out vessels, and we don't give him anything, and the world dies.
I also want to bring up Stephen Root, who plays Arthur Parsons. He's the guy giving the speech.
Yes.
Recognize him from Barry and a bunch of other stuff. Really good actor. I was like, it was great to have him selling you on this. It was brilliant.
Do you know what I always remember him from?
Go on.
RoboCop 3. He's the guy who betrays the rebels in RoboCop 3. And so, he's stood up and he has this great conversation with James, where James is questioning him about all this, and Stephen Root takes this unexplainable dialogue and makes it into kind of
something digestible that makes sense.
Like a preacher's speech.
Oh, yeah.
Right? So, you're believing his snake tongue. You're believing his double entendres and innuendos, because ultimately he's a hollowed out vessel as well, and he's fueled by the empty man, which, once again, doesn't make any sense. Because everybody else looks like shit in unison and walking in like they're robots, or they're hanging themselves and feeding their children to dogs.
Well, they're sat around looking at a blank canvas.
Well, that's it. How is fucking Stephen Root doing so fucking well for himself?
Because he's probably one of the higher ups in this whole,
Well, obviously,
religious
he
sect.
has to be, dude.
Right?
He's not a fucking janitor, is he?
Exactly. So it all makes sense in the hierarchy of the cult.
Well, no, because you don't know how many more of him there are.
No, we don't.
And are there more? And if there are more, why are there more? How are there more? How many more of these people have you got? Because for me, the entirety of this movie are all the people around James at the start at points were real. But as the movie goes on and he starts to do his fucking Nicolas Cage 8mm fucking investigation into this thing, he just gets lower and lower into the cult, which means he is just literally surrounded by cult members. He goes to this, he's investigating more of the Pontifex Institute, and he comes across these weird warehouse. And I've got to admit, when he got into that basement and it was like an empty basement with pipes and everything, I was just like, you've gone too far, dude. If you've got that far, you are lost.
Hey man, he's just thorough with his search.
Yeah, but like I said, experienced horror watcher, I'm like, he's lost in his own mind.
Oh, yeah.
The visuals around you are supposed to show that actually he's nothing real is whatnot.
Well, I mean, we've already had his nightmares, where he keeps waking up at like 3:03 in the morning, taking his pills, his
taking
routine.
the pills, yeah.
So we know he's traumatized and everything else.
And he comes across this part of this warehouse, and he looks out and he can see this group of people all holding bottles, kind of creating or talking or discussing and then blowing into the bottles in unison. And it's really weird and it's really creepy. And they appear to be calling on something, and he goes to try to look at it, and you're wanting to see it, thinking that maybe it's going to be the shadow guy or whatnot that we've been seeing, the weird homeless monster.
I just want to go back as well, because like the moments of, like you mentioning, like reality being different or people not feeling real, but that is James Lassombre's sort of perspective early on as well. Like when there's a procession of kids going to like a funeral pyre, or with candles or lights, to all the ones that died.
Yeah.
But they all move in unison. They're all silent. They're like a cult moving.
Yeah.
So even like something in reality that seems quite normal also kind of has a sinister edge to it. So that when you are seeing the cult members or other members doing it, you're like...
When you look back on the movie, you start to actually question a lot of the sequences and scenes that you saw, like, was it ever real and things like that. And that's really quite cool that the film has that replayability and ideas. But I don't know, that was just... Like I said, once he gets kicked out of that warehouse place and he goes on his investigation, he even, like, he found... files. He found files on Amanda. He found files on all of her friends.
He was reading about the tulpa and about how imagination and concentration can manifest into flesh.
Exactly. Now, all of that information, like, if it's not real, then the movie doesn't tell us if that's true. But if it's real, then this cult has been collecting this information for an incredibly long time and are very good at their job because they've got everything, but they've got a file on James and it's empty at this point because, like you said, he decides he's going to drive out. He finds fucking Camp Crystal Lake. Oh no, he gets told by Elrond.
Right, yeah, it's Robert Amango who plays Garrett.
Yeah,
who plays Elrond in the Rings of Power. Yeah, like not the best Elrond,
like,
not the good one.
I recognise those ears. Oh yeah, and he's there at the Pontifex Institute, and he says to him like, "Yeah, you've got to find this Amanda. She's not here anymore. She's nowhere. Oh, where's that? Yeah, it's Camp Nowhere." And I'm like, James, why are you believing this guy? He knows way too much. This is like Kill List all over again.
He starts losing his temper with him, starts punching him for information.
Well, he kidnaps him, doesn't he, to
and
get
that's
more.
A great shot where he looks around and everyone's just on their phones.
Yeah, nobody's because
I'm like, either they're cult members or it's just a comment on society.
I thought it was the comment on society, but he goes to this Camp Crystal fucking Lake place. And he uncovers like videotapes of them attempting to create something for the Empty Man. And I'm like, okay, so they've tried this before. They've tried a couple of times.
They've probably tried many times.
Yeah, and it seems like the only success was the one that they had in at the beginning.
Yeah.
You know, why it doesn't work, we don't know. Other than obviously it makes a really good plot for this movie. But he does go outside and he sees the giant bonfire and he sees the fire twirling up in the air and he sees all the cult members. And I thought that was cool, but at the same time I thought it was a bit of a rip off of Kill List.
Well, yeah, but I mean,
like Kill List did do it a lot better.
I think this film did it as equally well. I mean, I think Kill List went into the extremes of what happens at, like, that cult gathering. But, I mean, how else are you going to do it? Like, it's nighttime, cultists gathering around a fire. It's going to look similar no matter what. But, yeah,
not
it
just
will remind
that,
you.
but it was the chasing of him as well. The him stopping.
But it was him
looking
going, yeah, fuck that, and running away.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, brilliant.
And then them all chasing after him and him jumping in the car. Which, what would have happened if they'd caught him?
Yeah, no.
I don't know, but
Well, I know their intention was not to catch him because
they
I
would
know
have
how the
detained
movie
him
plays out.
and kept him for whatever purpose they had for him.
Right, but they've already got a purpose for him.
Yeah, exactly. That's probably why he got away. Because they let him.
Because they let him.
They wanted to scare him, make it feel real.
Right. Yeah, but you imagine if he just stopped. If he goes, oh, I can't run anymore. Oh, okay. They just stop. Like, no, you need to go, dude. You need to keep going. You don't want to capture me. It's like a bigger picture plot thing. Okay, just stick with.
But James doesn't know this yet, so.
No.
What the fuck was that? What the fuck was that?
So James decides to take the rest of his information to the police, and the police are not helpful. Like we said, one of them even says, look, we can't indict the cosmos. So, sorry, mate. You're involved with cults and sacrifices and all this kind of stuff. That's kind of on you. I got to be home at 6. I don't really want to try to take on elder gods or whatever. I was paraphrasing there. And so James realizes it's just up to him. He convinces Nora to go into hiding because he's afraid that the cultists are going to find her. And weirdly enough, James, no offense, mate, but they're going to fucking find her. Like, they found everything. They are going to find her. He takes on Elrond as well. He beats Elrond up for some extra information. And ultimately, he decides that he's going to break back into the Pontifex Institute. So he does. And he starts going around and he finds his file again. And this time it has a load of information in it.
Has the picture of the bear that he had for his son. It has the voucher that he used at the restaurant 2 days ago.
Now, the bear as well, he found at the...
Left at his doorstep.
The Camp Crystal place. He'd found... Well, it moved. It was at the camp and then it disappeared. Then it turned up at his doorstep. He found his voucher. And as he goes to walk out, he comes across the group that we had seen earlier in the movie, blowing on the bottles. He kind of realizes that he's looking at his past self / future self up on the balcony. The one that was looking down to try to see what was coming on. It's actually him looking upon him. And so at this point you go, okay, this is completely Wicker Man set the shit up. You know, like he really has no control. And so he ends up heading to the hospital. And he'd already seen old Elrond go to the hospital with a bunch of people. And they had gone into a weird kind of worshipping, praising mode of this guy in the bed. Now, if you haven't been paying attention, it's Paul. Paul from the beginning, yeah. They've basically been keeping him alive and moving him around throughout the, 30 odd years since they had obviously come across him. Or what we gather is that the empty man got out of the cave into Paul, started infecting more people. They've been moving Paul around trying to keep him alive. The empty man gives out messages that people should either kill people to put out his message, or they should join his cult so that they can make more empty man people. And James has got to the hospital and he gets told by this nurse. And I did kind of like that nurse character because she started to let on like she didn't know anything. And then she fucking just dropped everything to you. And that was the bit where I was like, yep, that's it. The movie's done it. Everything.
They're all cult members.
They're
They're
all
everywhere.
in on it.
They're in the police
Everybody's
force. They're
in
in the
on
hospital. But then it would make sense that they would be in sort of key locations like that.
They would, yeah. It's like the old devil worshippers type of thing. And she tells him, look, there's somebody in with him. And so he goes in there and it's Amanda. And she's gently just taking care of Paul. And so he calls up Nora, doesn't he, to tell her that he's found her daughter.
Yeah.
And Nora says to him, I don't know who you are.
Yeah, who are you?
Who are you? What? What's going on? And I'm like, okay, was Nora ever real? Like, I'll have to go back and watch the movie again to see if he was just talking to himself.
No, Nora was real.
But it played on the idea that, like, James had slept with Nora at Amanda's dad's funeral wake, and his wife and son had driven home and had ended up in a car accident and had died.
Off a bridge.
Off a bridge, yeah. Because the son was choking on a coin.
Right.
Because he was tapping it on his lip while they were driving because they almost hit a deer. Like, it was really detailed, the family death. I don't think it needed to be that detailed.
Well, they drove off a bridge. It's not that detailed.
Dude, they dodged a deer.
Yeah.
The kid was choking on a coin. The mum gets distracted. Then they drive off a bridge. It's
What's
not
the issue?
the fact that they could have just kept it as them sliding on a wet road and driving off the bridge. They could have made it that simple, but instead they make this whole deep idea about that, like. And I gotta explain to them first before I explain to you. Right, okay, so it turns out that Amanda tries to make out that James isn't real. They brought him into existence because empty man God thing works on an idea that nothingness can be something and that you can will something into existence if, I suppose, you believe it enough. And make dreams a reality and reality into dreams and warp minds and whatnot. It's all mind control, devil worshipping, cult worshipping shit. But she says to him, like, we willed you in. That group that you saw in the warehouse, we willed you in. You didn't exist when you first saw us. You existed the second time you saw us, which is technically the first time. But that's what I mean. Like, if they willed him into existence and then gave him this background tragedy to make him feel empty and hollow and just miserable so that the empty man could take him over and possess him so that he can spread his maleficent evil around the rest of the world, because he's not already doing that already.
Yeah, but he just needs a host that can hold him. Because obviously Paul
can hold him.
He's catatonic and he's dying now after 30 years of doing his bidding.
I'm sorry, but that's kind of what happens when you hold an elder god. But it's the idea, like, and so James as a vessel will be stronger because actually James is created
born of the imagination.
Yeah, is created by the very same energy in which the elder god is made of anyway, so that the two of them can become
symbiotic.
Yeah. But they did, I suppose. What I'm saying is then you didn't need to go so in depth on the tragedy of the family. Like, the idea of him loving his wife and son, getting involved in an affair, and then they end up in a car accident and driving off a bridge is pretty simple enough.
Is the fact that no one was there to witness this event happen, which now we know the wife and child never existed anyway. Exactly. The car never existed. The accident never happened.
So why did we have to have the kid tapping and the deer and the flying off the bridge?
Because they probably thought about the details of what happened during the accident so that they could, put that into his subconscious mind so that he could have nightmares about it. The film's not saying that's exactly what happened. That's just his nightmare about what happened. So, like, it could be anything.
Right.
Like, so the details are not that important.
Right, that's it. That's cool, because I don't find them... But
you made a big deal out of it, so I'm just confused why.
I am, because like you said, they're not that important. So then they added these things in to elongate the story, to make you feel more for James. But I didn't at this point, because I knew that everything had been... I didn't care for James like I cared for Edward Woodward at the end of Wicker Man. Like, some characters you care for by the end of the movie because you're like, oh my God, I did not see that coming. They properly manipulate. Like the guy at the end of Kill List, Like, if you haven't seen Kill List, you gotta go see it. It's fucking great. But it's kind of shocking, like, oh my God, yeah, that's been manipulated from the beginning. This had a little bit too much, I think. A little bit too much. They could have taken away a little bit, shortened it down a bit. Like we said, the whole Amanda explanation about bringing the thought into and all that kind of stuff. He then gets confronted by the empty man, and the empty man forces itself into him.
Yeah, it's a pretty cool sequence where the skeletal thing comes through this veil, and then that's like the shroud that's around it. Yeah, chases him through the hospital, vomits, like these fingers open up out of his mouth, vomits into him, and then just goes into him entirely.
Yeah. He was going to possess him.
And then he walks off and executes Paul, shoots him in the head.
Yeah.
Shoots him in the third eye, if you will.
Shoots him in the head, makes the same symbolism kind of thing that you saw in the cabin that they'd had from the experiment. And then he turns and...
I never saw that.
It was the imagery on the wall, wasn't it?
Sure.
Where the blood splatters. But the all the people at the hospital, they all witness it, and they don't react. They just immediately all just get onto their knees and go, "Yay! Proclaim our new god."
One last little bit of foreshadowing that the film did.
Yeah.
Do you know what the Spanish translation of La Sombra is?
It's like no.
The Shadow.
Oh.
So, yeah, like our empty man, he was called the Shadow from the get-go.
Mm-hmm.
So, and now he is the vessel of Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos. We heard the cultists chant their names at the fire. It was called the Crawling Chaos by Garrett at one point. It's like, okay, so it's an H.P. Lovecraft creation. It's a hidden Lovecraft movie this whole time.
Yeah, I mean most movies like this that involve kind of ancient things in caves are usually connected to Lovecraft in some kind of way, and sometimes they get the rights to do it and sometimes they don't.
True. Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Well, Ian, what were your favourite scenes from The Empty Man?
I don't know. Like I liked the audio stuff. I mean, it really started to kind of put me off of ASMR halfway through the movie. But then, like I said, it was always supposed to do that. Like I said, Hereditary kind of does the same thing. A movie like this tries to play on all of your senses, like the visuals, the audio, the stuff you're seeing. Is it real? Is it not? Is it all in his head? I did like the opening sequence. I mean, the opening, like you said, is very traditional horror movie. And I think it would have been nicer if that had just been the entire movie. Like, we had just followed these 4 people over the course of a week investigating this thing and slowly succumbing to it and, fucking dying. And then the next bunch of people come along and finding it. The rest of the movie, I like the investigation, but at the same time, there's also a hint for me that, maybe it's just me, maybe it's just too much of my experience as well with these types of movies, that it was just too obvious off the get-go of where this was going. I just needed the movie to tell me exactly what they were intending. And then when I like that little bit where he sees himself in the warehouse, it isn't really properly explained how that really comes about. Like I said, the top version, that's in the past in comparison to the one on the bottom, which will be in the future when we see it. But then again, when the film does reveal it, it's like he's in the past looking at his future self who's going to come to this. I'm like, how does that fucking work?
We made you as a group. We wrote up a complete biography for you and focused on it intently for several sessions to conjure you into being. You're our Tulpa, our empty man.
I really liked Stephen Root as the speaker, doing his kind of Pontifex Institute kind of conversation with James. I think it's a real shame they didn't have him in more. I don't know if that was intentional or if they just couldn't afford to have some kind of, an actor of that caliber, because I think he's like the biggest guy in the entire movie. There's nobody else on the acting credit that I could say, oh, actually, he's better than this. Stephen Root was like the guy. I really did like the cool transition from the map to the car.
Yeah, it was great, wasn't it? Because it wasn't just a transition, it was a camera swoop and pan in as well, wasn't it?
That was really great. That was a really great effect. Yeah, that's it for me.
Yeah, I think there's some really cool moments in the film. I liked the opening shot. I thought that was a great visual to open the film on. And then the whole getting to, like, well, the giant skeletal monster, the Nyarlathotep, the Empty Man, whatever it is. I thought the effect and the prop was really well done. So yeah, I liked all of the mountaintop stuff. That was really fun. And again, the shadow racing towards the cabin as well. I also liked the shadow behind the kids in the outside the school. I really liked the kids on the bridge sequence. It was the whole urban legend blowing into the bottles, and and the wind and the leaves blowing and the lights turning off. It was like, okay, yeah, it's very ominous. The music by Christopher Young was really good. The sound design in the film was extra level of immersion into those moments when it was really quiet as well. I like the scene with Amanda and James right at the beginning, where they're sat on the bench in the garden, and she pretty much explains the film's plot right there.
Yeah, she does. She basically does.
You're not aware of it at the time,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
she pretty much explains the whole thing right there.
Yeah, yeah. I think as well, imagery wise, like I said, if you were going to look back on the movie with her just sitting on that bench and them looking at that pool, he doesn't know anything. The moment he sits down, she then basically tells him his backstory, and that starts all the horror for him.
She pretty much
The
also
nightmare.
goes, "I created you. Like, I imagined it," and she points at him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. The map transition, you mentioned that one.
Great.
I like the cult running around the fire. That looked like great fun.
That was great.
And it was the moment they all stopped and then took one step, two steps towards him.
Yeah.
And then it was him going, nah, and just running.
I gotta admit, I didn't like the fire effect when it went up.
I know it was a CGI effect,
Yeah.
but I just liked that something mysterious and unnatural was happening.
I get that. Like I said, maybe once again, like I said, experience of us staring at fucking CGI, good CGI, and bad
know.
CGI. You're just like,
And this film didn't have
should've tightened
a
that.
big budget, and considering
Yeah.
how it was so mistreated by the studios, I'm like,
Yeah.
I'll forgive some things.
yeah.
The abduction and everyone looking at their phones.
Yeah.
I was like, that was great. Just a quick camera pan around, like no one saw me. In we go. I also like the creepy moments where, like at the beginning, when Paul's over his girlfriend whispering in her
That
ear.
was freaky.
And then when there's a sequence where he's in the school and he looks down and he sees Amanda whispering into
whispering
her
to her
boyfriend's ear.
boyfriend's ear.
So you
That
just
was
get an idea
freaky.
of how quickly it probably could just spread.
The night stuff when he keeps hearing things outside his bedroom door.
Yeah, and
he
he's
keeps
creeping to
seeing
look
it.
underneath
That
the
was-
gap.
That was creepy.
Yeah.
It did
has
that
some good
really
horror
well.
atmosphere.
Yeah.
Well, Ian, do you recommend The Empty Man?
You know what? I was all ready to shit on this movie. I didn't really enjoy it. Like, it dragged. It was kind of predictable in places. And personally, I just think there are better cult movies. But then again, I have been sat here with my friend discussing it, thinking it back. It's been like a whole 5 days since I watched it. So now I'm just pulling it back from memory. And I will say right now, personally, I don't recommend The Empty Man, but at the least give it a try, okay? Because if you're the type of person, if you are, and you know you are, if you're the type of person who went out your way to watch Romulus, you can watch The Empty Man, okay? If you went out your way to go, hey, I watched The Collector and Collector 2, or Terrifier 1, 2, and 3, you can spend 2 hours watching The Empty Man, okay? I personally didn't really enjoy it, but then again, I kind of knew what was going to go on. I kind of predicted how the story is going to plan out, even without Wiki in it. That's pretty good on me. But at the same time, it had some really creepy atmosphere. It had some really kind of creepy dialogue. It had some really weird moments that at least by the end of it, like I said, sitting here 5 days after watching it, I'll go, you know what? Wasn't bad. It didn't have any cousin fucking like Romulus, you know, and it didn't have no stupid ass yellow glue on the floor which doesn't eat through fucking floors or cats or shit. But at least, I don't know, it had some weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I like weird. So yes, I am also going to be recommending The Empty Man, though it may not appeal to many due to its somber and meditative tone and slow pace. What it does is deliver a very well-crafted, suspense-filled nightmare that I feel gets better with each viewing. third time's the charm with Empty Man. As I said, previous attempts to finish this left me sleeping soundly. Only now, I think I misjudged this overlooked, I think soon to be, cult classic in the making. Being a Lovecraftian fan certainly helps, and knowing the film's many revelations also rewards you on a rewatch. The acting is solid throughout. James Badge Dale really captured that tortured soul. His internal battles and challenged beliefs felt authentic and believable, and it felt refreshing to have a horror protagonist act as many would in certain horrific situations. The music by Brian Williams and legend Christopher Young really elevates the film. It adds that mystery and panic as reality starts to shape something unknown. Fantastic score and sound design all round. So yeah, give this a go, and if it didn't stick, try again. The first night you hear him, the second night he sees you, on the third night he finds you. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.